Hello Reapers, my name is Seth, and today we're going to be taking a look at some of the alpha footage of PixARK that I've been able to scour across the internet. There's actually a couple YouTube channels that are Chinese based, of course, because the game is originally being developed by a Chinese company, or at least is under a Chinese company, and these channels actually have like alpha footage of the game that most likely is going to end up seeing a bit of an improvement when we end up getting the game early access in March. But what we're going to be doing today is going through all of the footage that we've found thus far and kind of talking about and speculating about some of the different game modes and everything like that, because we got some very interesting stuff here that not only is going to end up showing off different combat and mounted combat and stuff like that, but we're also going to see a couple of different game modes, including a game mode that's very similar to League of Legends, so it's a MOBA game mode, as well as just survival and stuff. So the first piece of footage that we're going to be looking at here is Arena Mode 2, meaning that there is another Arena Mode video that we're going to end up coming across, but let's just watch it right here. So it's very cool that right off the hop they show that there's the rifle, there's the pistol, there's an axe, there's a grenade, and now they're already using, you can see the other character right there was using a shotgun, so we can confirm that a lot of the same weapons in an assault rifle are going to end up being present in PixARK that were actually present in ARK. So the thing that I'm wondering is this game going to end up being just as resource gathering heavy as ARK was, where you're going to have to gather tons of resources and start creating all of these supplies and all of this gear and stuff like that. Now, looking at these explosions from these grenades, I mean, that looks pretty crazy, dude. I'm really hoping that it's because this is a specific game mode that there is no destruction to the environment, because what I desperately love in voxel games is being able to use explosives like rocket launchers, as we've seen are actually going to be present in this game, and these grenades. I would love to be using those to destroy the environment, and as much as they've got this arena mode right here, I would love the idea of having a set map where you can end up having PvP with a bunch of other players and destroying the environment, very similar to how the Battlefield games ended up working, right? So right there at the last clip, we got to see that they actually did have a silenced pistol. So now we're going to be looking at Arena Mode 3. This is the third video that I have of this, and this is, as you can see, is going to end up being the MOBA type of game. I'm just going to turn the volume down right here because we've actually got a Chinese commentary, but you can see we got a mace, we've got the riot shield, we got a mage character right here, as well as all these different stations that are around in the environment. The weapons look really impressive. The third-person camera looks great. The creatures look awesome. The environment itself for this specific MOBA arena looks absolutely terrible, but it's cool that it's a game mode. You know, it seems like it's an actual fleshed out component that potentially could end up adding a lot to the PvP. You could actually see a character in the background right there ended up having a giant shark hat. So I'm wondering whether or not you can actually end up making armor out of different creatures specifically, because we kind of speculated about that in my video where we ended up breaking down the trailer. So actually right there, that's impressive. They ended up taking down a full-on rock golem, which is going to end up being very similar to the creature that we saw in ARK in the desert DLC. And here we see the big MOBA finish where they're just destroying the towers all the way at the end, and then there you go, victory. That's a GG. Cool that it's actually a thing. So now we get to see the first footage of the arena combat, which doesn't really show that much new over the other mode. Outside of right there, you can see that that character was rocking scuba gear for some weird reason, and it seemed to have maybe the shark armor I'm actually thinking now is more of a vanity item, because we actually saw right there that that character had a scuba tank on his back that had a shark fin. Now maybe that's just what it actually looks like vanilla in the game, but you can see that he is rocking full-on like diving gear, so he's got like a full face. Now, interestingly enough, look at this axe compared to the axe that we saw in the first bit of footage. The first axe that we ended up seeing was a metal axe. That was more like a normal wooden or just like a lesser axe, right? So it goes to show that this game most likely is going to have the same tiers. There's a shotgun gameplay. It's going to have the same tiers that ARK ended up having, where we're going to see like just a normal starting wooden stone axe or whatever it is, compared to the late tier where you're going to end up getting metal gears, right? Like that's metal items and stuff like that. So obviously there's going to be a metal resource. Now the thing that's interestingly enough as well is, from what all the screenshots have ended up telling us, there's more than just one type of ore. So this one's kind of cool. We get to see a time lapse of these people actually building a structure. So you can see it's a full-on voxel game. Straight up, you're going to be able to build the house brick by brick. And while we speculated in the trailer that there was not going to end up being any roofs, you actually got to see on that building that there was slanted roofs. And then this is going to end up being the saddles, the platform saddles, which you can see are a lot, like they have a lot more potential than they did in Ark, because you're going to be able to build it block by block. And it seems like you can just build whatever you want. I'm pretty sure that that's actually rope ladders, which explains why it's just dropping down and not actually having to attach to a specific block. But we get to see a nice little parasaur gameplay right there, and a floating platform saddle on a new creature that we have not actually seen in Ark, a giant manta ray. Now, there were manta rays in Ark, but there were not giant ones, let alone ones that you can end up putting a platform saddle on. So that's absolutely awesome. That base you saw was completely enclosed with glass blocks, so I'm wondering if you build an underwater base, you're going to have to completely enclose it. Maybe you can just build underwater bases at any point, very similar to Minecraft, if you end up removing all the water blocks. The reason why this is important is because in Ark, you had to go into tech gear. So now we're going to get to take a sneak peek at some of the caves right here. This is actually new footage for me. I haven't actually checked this out, so I'm really interested to see what happens. Okay, so they're gearing up at, I'm guessing that's like a workstation, and we've got mining helmets, 2 different types of mining helmets. I am totally down for that. Already we can see they've got grappling hooks, they got their pickaxes, they're checking all their gear, they got their flare guns, and yeah, that's just an flare gun. I thought that was a lighter or something. Fire staff, because he went down the magic tier, and then we can see, I'm not exactly sure what this tethering system is that we see right here. I don't know what that's about, but they're at least putting down, I don't know if that's tethers or if that's necessarily, is that just them putting down torches? Maybe we're going to see something very similar to Astroneer, where you're going to end up using the tethers to kind of keep you alive, a little bit of survivability going on. But as we see these characters just jump right on in, it doesn't look like they have to stay attached to them in any way, shape, or form. But these caves are really, really deep, and the fact that we have the grappling hook means that exploring caves is going to end up being that much easier. But you can see that the generation is insane. Like, this is great. You know, Minecraft does have its caves, but usually they're very closed off. Creatures underground as well, we can see right here. So I'm guessing that's going to end up being something very similar to the Nameless that we ended up seeing in the recent Ark expansion. Maybe it's not necessarily the Nameless per se, it's just going to be underground creatures, but the fact that there is going to end up being creatures underground is the big deal. So it seems like they're already just leaving the cave right here. I don't know what that adventure was about, what were they trying to actually get out of it, but at least we got to see that there are flare guns and stuff. This one's a really cool one because we get to see a full farming station, get to see the potential of that nice little white house right there. Absolutely love it. Rafts are in the game as well, so there's going to be some types of vehicles, not that many. We get to see more roof blocks, really, really liking the way that it looks. Fish are confirmed in the game, which means that fishing is definitely going to be in the game as well. And we get to see some very similar, you know, dinosaurs that we've already seen in Ark. And I love the third-person camera. I love the way that this game looks. Like, seriously, this just, doesn't it look beautiful? I know that the video quality doesn't do justice, and I'm sorry that it's not at a higher quality, but again, I ripped these from a Chinese YouTube channel, so but we get to see a whole bunch of different things in here. Very similar crafting tables, as well as racks for your guns, so you can store all your weapons and stuff. Very, very nice detail to the environment. Tables and chairs and everything that you can end up interacting with. And fish is just like, I want to emphasize how beautiful and awesome it is to have fish, because it means that we're going to be able to use them in builds. And then this I actually particularly really like, in that the fences seem to actually enclose these dinosaurs regardless of their size. So of course a Bronto is just going to be able to walk right over it, but you can see like these other creatures are just staying in the enclosed areas, which is important to note because in Ark you had to build massive walls to keep all of your creatures safe, and now we can just have a very quick, very easy, just a small fenced section that seems like it's going to end up keeping most of your creatures safe. And also we get to see the big thing right there, the electronic compound, which was a giant fan, so that was probably going to end up being to do with like generating electricity. We get to see a bit of the rafting, also a bit of the not the creatures, but the bushes and stuff like that. There are going to end up being wells and piping that you have to use in order to water the plants, obviously. Now we'll move on to seeing some Quetzal combat right here. We get to see a big platform saddle that does confirm you can actually have dinosaurs on a platform saddle similar to Ark, because we actually see all of these pterodons or Patera, I forget what they're even, how to pronounce their name, but either way, you can have them all on the Quetzal saddle and then all launch out and into the world. And this is really interesting because you see that this platform right here is not actually attached to the platform saddle, yet it actually is still operating as if it's by the platform saddle, interestingly enough. We get to see a bit of a new biome in the background here, the characters grappling onto the Quetzal. So as soon as the Quetzal ended up dying, you saw that the platform saddle ended up getting destroyed. So that's pretty crazy. Get some nice PvP action of these characters all fighting each other, while also getting to see the catapults right here, and we got to see some other weird creatures down in the background of the castle. Getting to see that there is also giant gates, so while you might actually build the structures yourselves, you still are going to be able to have giant gates to lock down your bases. Now this should excite Ark fans. Bigfoot is back. They're going to have that creature in this game, and I've actually seen screenshots of you actually riding on the creature's back. So the way that this creature would end up working, if it's similar to Ark, is you would actually give it a passive tame. So you can see what they ended up doing right there was they ended up luring it into a pit, and I'm assuming ended up taming it. Now in Ark, we've seen passive tames where you had to give certain creatures food. In this game, so far what I've seen is every type of taming in the game is actually just knocking the creature out, including wyverns. And we will actually see some wyvern combat in a little bit here. Now that was interesting right there. We actually got to see that these Bigfoot creatures could operate machinery. Now I'm not sure how much machinery they're going to be able to operate, but either way, that was really, really cool that they ended up being able to interact with this little drawbridge here. And drawbridges being a thing in the game, more different types of variations of roof blocks. And what this video was kind of focused on was getting all the Bigfoot onto a raft, bringing them to another island, and doing a raid on another base. So we got another raiding and base thing right here, but this seems to actually be a quest. This is actually probably one of the procedural generated quests where a bunch of creatures are spawning into this player base, which you can see based on the footage is the same farm that we saw a couple videos back. And it's really cool that this is actually a thing, because potentially it means that we could actually see this as you know, a raid that ends up regularly happening to your bases, that kind of keeps you on your toes, makes it so that you end up trying to have everything as developed as possible. We get to see that elevators are going to end up being in the game. There's metal structures as well, so we get to see metal doors, metal walls, generators, and all the electricity stuff that you come to expect in Ark, as well as a couple other crafting tables. We get to see refrigerators here as well, underground farming, which is interesting, as well as a nice little dynamic lighting down here, which doesn't seem to be operating very well right now. But, I mean, the fact that there's lighting is really cool in general. And then we get to see armor stations, weapon stations, all sorts of crazy stuff right here. Absolutely beautiful use of space right there. Like, that is a big, big deal as far as Ark is concerned, because it means that you can stock up, make your base not only look very cool, but also just having armor stations similar to Minecraft means you can show off all your stuff. So now this is going to be the actual first official trailer of the game, which I'm guessing was just like the Chinese trailer, and then they ended up making a more high production trailer for PixARK when it was North America. But you can see that the balloons that we ended up seeing in the actual trailer, I'll put a link in the description if you haven't already seen it, the balloons seem to be very similar to parachutes. So I guess it's just going to end up being a resource that you're going to end up using. Most likely you're going to have to craft multiple of, which means that as soon as Steam Workshop comes out, I'm really excited for when the quality of life little patches and mods end up coming out, where you would just have infinite parachutes, because I don't like having to craft them over and over again. But for the most part, all this video is just a whole bunch of combat. We get to see that smoke grenades have a return, even though you never really use those in Ark, or at least I didn't, just because of the fact that, you know, we're talking about like PvP versus PvE, and you can see that the scope, like when the character was looking down the sights of the scope, it seemed to change a little bit from the other gameplay that we ended up seeing. And that giant beam of light that we saw right there is actually the corpse of this character that ended up just dying, because as you saw for a split second, when this player ended up dying, a beam of light ended up coming out of him, and it seems like it's just player corpses in general. Maybe if you're in like a normal survival game, It's just going to end up showing you, you know, your own body, just so that you can end up searching it out in a big area. But for the most part, it just, I don't know. It looks like it's just like a whole bunch of characters and showing all of them. And then we get to see, this is hilarious. You actually can, he's picked up the dodo. I don't know whether or not that was actually a dead dodo that they picked up, or if you can just pick them up very similarly to how you were able to in Ark. All right, folks, now we get to the two most exciting aspects, which is going to see a wyvern tame, and then we're going to get to see some wyvern combat. So wyverns normally in Ark, you would have to go to their nest and actually steal one of their eggs, bring it back and raise it. Well, the wyverns would also give you a ton of grief because they would be attacking you during all of this. But we get to see right here that this character is actually using an electric bow, so I'm guessing electricity, maybe elements are going to end up being in roleplay instead of tranquilizers. It's going to be, you know, electric gear is going to be what stuns creatures, which means potentially we could see an electric staff as well. Maybe this has got to do with the magic skill tree that you end up going down, but you can see that trapping this creature is very, very similar to the griffins that we actually saw in Ark as well, where you just set up a cage. The AI seems to be really, really poor, at least in this early stage of development, where the creature is not actually trying to turn around and get out of there like they usually do in Ark. It seems like if you just stay close enough, you're going to keep that aggro and keep the creature stuck in the cage. And again, you know, rather than actually going for eggs, we can see that this is just like a passive tame where they end up knocking the creature out. Looks beautiful, by the way, like it being all electrocuted and chained up and stuff like that. And then there you go. Now they actually tamed it, they claimed it, fed it, and let's take a look at some wyvern combat. Oh yeah, isn't it beautiful? Like, I love this pixel dragon, dude. Like, the dragons in general, I love the wyverns in Ark, but unfortunately they always had like really, really slow turning. And we can actually see in this footage right here that although the wyvern turning has been increased a little bit, they still do kind of turn like trucks, unfortunately, which is a big deal. You know, I personally like the creatures having a little bit more control when you're using a flying creature, but the trade-off is, of course, the fact that the wyverns are one of, if not the strongest vanilla creature in Ark that you can actually get in the entire game, outside of in the aberration downloadable content, because of course wyverns aren't in it. But you know, it goes to show that maybe in PixARK we're going to see these guys actually being the strongest tameable mob in the game. We do know that there's a whole bunch of other definitely powerful creatures in the game, but we don't know whether or not they're going to end up being more powerful than a wyvern, right? Anyways, that's already it, everybody. This video's gone on long enough. Thank you so much for watching. If requested enough, I could end up just uploading a raw video of all of the footage that I ended up finding, but for the most part, I'm just gonna end up putting a link in the description to the YouTube channel where I ended up finding all this stuff. There is a couple other YouTube channels out there that do show some other footage, but it's not really of quality enough that I wanted to show you all it on camera. But we do get to confirm that there is going to be, very similar to Ark, a normal inventory and a crafting inventory, as well as walking through the environment, punching trees to get wood, gathering plants to get berries and fiber and stuff like that. All of that is confirmed to be in PixARK. I've actually seen it in game gameplay, so you can scour the internet to look up that stuff for yourselves if you want, but it's not necessarily on the YouTube channel that I'm going to be linking. It's just on a random one that I found out there that was a weird Chinese one, but it was really blurry footage, so I didn't really want to bore you with it. In either case though, folks, thank you so much for watching. Very much appreciate it. Extremely excited about this game, like seriously. So I'm hoping by showing all this footage it gets you all excited equally as well, because I mean seriously, now we just know that this game is going to end up being even more like Ark, while also having its own little twist on it because it's a voxel game. Thanks for watching though, folks. Very much appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, favorite, and subscribe for more daily content. That's also going to build up loyalty points to my merch store. Links are in the description for that. And for the fans that want to go the extra mile, you can donate to me for absolutely free with Gawkbox. Links are in the description explaining that as well. Sign on and stay up, everybody.